don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that was a Bigfoot. Let me tell you a story. These stories are based upon true events. Welcome to another Bigfoot Campfire Story. As a young heathen, I was exposed to both my Irish and my native backgrounds. I spent many summers on the Cherokee Reservation with family members from nearly the time I can remember. Even back in the early 70s, many tribal ways were still followed, and the oral history was passed down at almost every meal. We were sitting around a campfire, much like this one, when my great-great-uncle Standing Deer told us this great story. Many moons ago, before the white man came, our dealings with the hairy man were much different than they are now. My grandfather's grandfather said that on ceremony nights, the hairy man would come into camp sometimes, as many as a dozen, and sit on the very edges of the firelight and watch the tribe. As the warriors would dance and drum as they circled the fire, the hairy man would grunt and drum on the ground to the beat, almost as if they were chanting. We were always told not to venture too far from the firelight, as the hairy man did not like us to stray into their dealings at night. Daytime was for us, and nighttime was for them. But every now and then, the story of those that did not listen would be told around a fire, again, just like this one. A tribeswoman and her daughters were traveling at night to the next village. Her mother was sick, and they needed help, and with no time to wait, she gathered their things and set off for the next camp. Women of the tribe did not travel by horseback, so they set off on foot in the dark of night. They managed to get to the top of the ridge without much delay, but the moon was now dark, and the night cold and long, while the next village was some 10 miles away through thick trees and forest. The woman traveled with her 2 daughters, the oldest 14 and the youngest 12, all of them experienced in the ways of the tribe, and the sick family member in need. They were to get there without haste to their destination. After a few hours of walking, the mother realized that they were no longer alone. Something had picked up the pace, and she knew it was not going to be good. She grabbed the girls by the arms and told them to run and get help, that the village was only a distance away now, and the girls took off to get help. The girls looked back just in time to see the creature come out and smash their mother to the ground, and then the girls were out of sight, running as fast as they could. It was a giant size, some 9 feet tall, with red glowing eyes, an awful stench, scraggly gray hair and skin. It pushed her to the ground with ease, and it rifled through her basket and things that fell to the ground. She sat there in fear as the hairy man ate the food it could find, then snatched the woman up and tossed her over his shoulder and took her into the woods. The daughters made it to the next village, and as they could see the firelight, they began to scream and cry to alert the village to the danger. Many of the warrior braves came out, and they heard the mother was fearful of an animal attack, and since she wasn't behind them, she was surely in trouble. Many of the tribal men gathered up the horses and their weapons, and they rode out to find the woman. Alive or dead, they would certainly find out. The girls had been specific about where they were, and the men found signs of a struggle and the woman's belongings strung about the area. It wasn't long before they found the giant man-sized tracks and realized it was Hairy Man that was the attacker. They quickly picked up the trail and followed it to the rock caves just a few miles ahead. As they approached the caves, they could hear the woman's cries, haunting and quiet, as it wasn't long before they had a plan to rescue her. The men did not want to kill the hairy man, as they knew that would bring bad medicine on the tribe, so they planned to draw it out and distract it, as others went in to retrieve her from the cave. The men set off, and he climbed above the cave. They set a fire on top and began to chant and hoot as they make their presence known. The ruse worked as the hairy man ran out of the cave to see what was going on. As the hairy man exited, just then 3 braves entered the cave, gathered up the missing woman, and took her from the cave. The men on top of the caves had left their diversion with the fire burning and returned to the group, now including the missing woman. The men took to horseback and began to ride from the area with haste. They could hear the hairy man screaming upon returning to the cave and finding the woman now gone. They had thought they were safe, and as clear as the group rode hard and fast for the village. After a time, they arrived back to the village and got the woman inside for help. She was banged up pretty bad with bumps on her head and cuts on her back and legs. She told the story of how the hairy man tried to breed with her over and over, but never got it figured out, as it was frustrated when the men showed up and they rescued her from the creature. She didn't feel it wanted to hurt her. It just did it in size and frustration. As she finished telling the story, the village heard a loud screaming call from outside the camp. The men rushed to the edge to see the hairy man pacing back and forth near their horses. He yelled and screamed out as the men stood ready to defend the village. Finally, Hairy Man, with one giant swipe, broke the neck of a colt nearest him and dragged the animal off into the night. From there, everything went silent, and the night concluded without further event. The next day, the woman's daughter tended to her family members and helped care for their mother until she was recovered. After, the men escorted her and her daughters back home to tell the story. That was the last time we remember hearing of Hairy Man taking someone at night, but we still stay close to the fire, as one never knows when Hairy Man will show up for you. Thanks for listening. I'm Reverend Jeff, and may the Squatch be with you.